Normally we're a team of two, as you probably know, and we can't team up at the moment. So I decided I'm gonna try something to sort of tide us over the weekend until we can record again. And yeah, I thought we could have a look at my growing vinyl collection. It's been growing very slowly. I want to keep sort of the maps until next week. Map of Denmark, map of Switzerland, also the video about the global Englishes, so international English, which I think is a really fascinating topic. But you know, these are sometimes smaller maps, and I just want to make sure you can see them well so we can zoom in. Okay. So I would say we just wait a couple minutes and see if anyone else wants to join. I feel a bit odd doing this. It's my first ever live stream, like I said. It's a very new experience. I hope that maybe my cat wants to join us at some point. She's currently sneaking around. I think she's a bit annoyed that I stole her chair that she was sleeping on. Mishka. Okay, she's having a look. Mishka. Come on. Okay, she's a bit unsure. 1 second, let me see if I can get it. Hello everyone! This is Mishka. Oh, hi! Do you have something to say, Mishka? Okay. She's a bit unsure about that. Okay. So basically, I mean, the first vinyl's already here. Got some cat hair on it, but as you probably know, once you have a cat, that's how your life's going. I said it was going to be a bit of a heavier edition. This is Aurora, not very heavy, but I thought we could just slowly sort of make our way towards the heavier stuff. Hey Michael, thanks for joining. We have another 5 minutes to go. I said I was going to start at 9, so I want to wait a few minutes. Do you guys maybe have any questions or something? It's a bit of an awkward start to a live stream. Or to the first live stream. But we're gonna get there. It kind of feels a bit different to just recording. So I have some tea, I hope you do too. Or something else that you enjoy. Really? Hi Mehtab, thanks for joining. We had a really beautiful day today, and we were out ice skating in front of the town hall, which is a really beautiful venue in Vienna, so just right at the center, in front of the Burgtheater, the big theater. And they've built a little platform so you can do your tracks through the wood that they have in front of the town hall, and then you can sort of go up and look out and across towards the theatre. And the sun was shining, we played some nice music, it was really good. Not a good ice skater though. But I didn't fall. It wasn't exactly looking elegant. But it was okay in the end. What we could do is just quickly go through the vinyls that I had last time. So you might remember these. This is Fiona Apple, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. It came out in 2020. I remember listening to this on a streaming platform. During or after the first lockdown, which seems like it was ages ago. And it was definitely an album I wanted to get once I had my vinyl player. I really love this. I think she's a fantastic artist. I like her very much. Then Tori Amos. Someone we looked at last time. Little Earthquakes. I don't like her newer things as much, but this one is an amazing album. Really like the tiny piano there. And this was a really lucky find. Relatively cheap, which, you know, vinyls can be awfully expensive. So, lucky with that one. Then we already looked at Nina Cherry, Broken Politics, which is one of her newer albums. This is from 2018. I first listened to her when I think Man came out. I think the album's called Man. Probably still have the CD somewhere. And this sounds very different to what she sounded like back then. But I even saw her live at some point. I was like 12, I think. It was very exciting, all very new to me. Just like today. Okay, 1 second. What else do we have? Massive Attack, of course. Two vinyls in there. I really like their stuff from the 90s. Just amazing band, really fantastic. Then we had Mark Lanigan and Duke Garwood, Black Pudding. I don't know how many albums Mark Lanigan has released. I feel like he's on absolutely everything. There's numerous albums coming out every year. But I love his voice. And I don't think there's any album that I haven't enjoyed. Especially like the ones that he did with Isabel Campbell from Belle and Sebastian. Belle and Sebastian family, not really my kind of thing, but when they played together, it's just magic. Really beautiful. And then there's my old and battered Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. This one is one of my parents' vinyls that I got to inherit. But it's just the cover that looks a bit old and battered. And the vinyl itself is still fine without scratches, so that's lucky. I think I had one more vinyl back then, but we're gonna come to that when we go through the new ones. Hey everyone, thank you for joining me. So, okay, it's past 9 o'clock. I had a bit of an awkward start to this. If you've been here for 10 minutes, you noticed that. I didn't mean to go live early. And again, very different setup today because of the circumstances, but I figured I'm gonna try something to tide us over to next week when we can get back into the actual maps that we have planned. So let's look at these newer maps. At these newer vinyls. This is Aurora, a Norwegian singer. She has this absolutely gorgeous picture here in the center with her name here, Aurora. And the album title is The Gods We Can Touch. I just absolutely love her voice and her style. And the album's a bit unexpected. I know she's a bit of a TikTok star with her music. Make of that what you want. But I thought it's not necessarily all easy to listen to. She reminds me a little of Björk, like sort of early Björk, when Björk was still kind of more poppy. And I'm wondering if Aurora might go in a similar direction. I would be very excited by that. So I'm sure she's going to come up with some really amazing stuff. There's again 2 vinyls in there. On side A we have The Forbidden Fruits of Eden. We have Cure for Me, The Innocent, and The Dangerous Thing. On side B we have Exist for Love, Heathens, and Blood in the Wine. C is Exhale, Inhale. It's a little difficult to read. A Temporary High. The Woman. Not sure what this means. This could be a dream. The Devil is Human. The last one is a little place called The Moon. I'm really having trouble deciphering the letters there. Thank you for the love in the chat. Michael, yeah, I definitely feel that Mark Lanigan's amazing. It's just a fantastic voice. I really like the cover artwork on this. It's very minimalistic, very elegant. if you don't know Aurora, I definitely recommend checking her out. I was really pleasantly surprised. She also has a cover of an Ariana Grande song. Ariana Grande is not so much for me. I do like pop music, but you know, everyone has their favorites. But her version just blew me away. It's so beautiful. Again, we have some minimalistic cover art. And then some of the info on the album here. Again, you need to have good eyes to be able to decipher that. I actually only just bought this week. And I haven't had too much time to sit down and really listen. But I'm planning to do so maybe after we're finished. For a little relaxation. Okay, let's see what we have next. This is Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds live from KCRW. I love this cover, especially this detail here. And that apple that he's holding in his hand. I got to see Nick Cave something like 10 years ago, just when Push the Sky came out. I was at a festival. I generally feel a bit old for festivals, I have to admit. But that was such a beautiful and magical experience. It absolutely made it worth it. I loved that one. And I liked Nick Cave before, but that kind of made me like him even more. Hi Isabel, thank you for joining me. Yeah, the time zones don't necessarily work in our favors. It's, you know, bedtime here, but I think especially if you're on the West Coast in North America, I don't think this is going to get you out of bed. Okay, so here it says, at the end of a 3-month world tour for Push the Sky Away in the spring of 2013, Nick Cave and a part-down version of the Bad Seeds performed a show in California for KCRW in front of 180 people. No rehearsals, no cameras, no overdubs. This is the result. He played Hicksbosom Blues, Far From Me and Stranger Than Kindness. Then The Mercy Seat and No More Shall We Part, White Lovely Eyes and Mermaids. People Ain't No Good, Into My Arms, God Is in the House and Push the Sky Away, which I've already mentioned, and then Jack the Ripper. I also really like this song here, and No More Shall We Part. I'm not sure, I think it was the album title of that album. It came out around 2000. And I remember listening to that. We had the CD at home and we listened to it in the car when we were driving around. We also had like Red Hot Chili Peppers, really like that. So, some good memories there. But yeah, Push the Sky Away might be my favorite album. I was listening to ASMR at the time. Like ASMR must have been completely new then. And I think I got some, like, no tingles, but it was very relaxing, parts of it. Hey Eva, thank you for the comment. The pickled zucchini one gave us some issues, so I'm really glad you enjoyed that. I've just been eating those zucchinis now and they're really good. So, definitely a recipe to keep for next year. Okay, and here we can see the recording session. Some of the audience members. It says here, recorded April 18th, 2013 with Warren Ellis, Martin Casey, Jim Sclavunas and Barry Adamson. And some additional information on the songwriters. Blixa Bargeld, obviously involved in that too. He has a band called Einstürzende Neubauten. I don't know how well known they are internationally, but they're pretty cool too. And they're supposed to play here in summer. At least I hope they're going to play. And I'm thinking about getting a ticket. Bit of a risky thing recently, but let's see. I'm hopeful for this summer. I think we're going to finally get some concerts. Right, I think this is Warren Ellis here on the guitar. We have a whole lot of papers and some water here on the piano. Drums, presumably a bass and a keyboard. Let's see if we have anything else in there. No. It's a gorgeous album. But I think it was probably obvious that I like Nick Cave based on some of the other stuff that I've shown you. Okay. So then, this one is probably a little more unknown, but this has been one of my favorite albums. It's just absolutely fantastic. They are, I keep mixing it up, but I think the band is called Tenhi, and the album is called Saino. I don't know anything else by them. In fact, I don't know who's in the band. And they're from Finland. And this is, pretty much the album sounds sort of the way that the cover looks. Very quiet, a little dark, but just absolutely beautiful. The first song I heard was Vuoksi. It came on just a playlist on one of the streaming sites, and there's a cello in there that it blew me away. Really gorgeous, and I decided to check them out after that. It says here this is from 2016. I think they have some old albums too. And I don't know how good my camera is here and how well you can see this. I have the stream open on the side and it's looking a bit blurry. So, yeah, difficult circumstances. But the artwork is so gorgeous. It looks like out of a fairy tale or out of a dream. There's a boat here with, looks like an older woman in a beautifully patterned skirt and a fishing net. And she's catching these lights of stars in a net. And that's what she has here in her boat. looks like a little like fog there in the back on the water. The songs are in Finnish, but there's some translation here on the side. Let's see if we can find my favorite song. But I think it's not there. So they're keeping some secrets. Again, here we have some artwork. The ocean turning into the skirts and dresses and hair of women there in the back. So these figures coming out of the waves. I just adore this one, really adore this. If you like sort of music that's a little moody, I very much recommend that you check this one out. Again, little boy fishing with his lantern of light. So, very happy I have this one. Oops, let's see if we can get back into the packaging. All right. Then this is a band that I talked about last time too. And in fact, the album that I've shown you looks very similar. Kind of like this, just in black. This is Wardruna, also from Norway, with their logo here. And this is their first album. It says it was recorded between 2003 and 2008. They came out, I think at the earliest, around 2010, probably a bit later. So they started working on it quite early on. It's a concept album, one of three, on the sort of spiritual meaning of the runes. They dig a little into Norwegian history with their work. There's some explanation on it here, on what the runes mean to them, on what working on the album meant to them, with some lyrics here on the side. And as you probably know, I'm learning Norwegian. I'm never quite sure whether I have a hard time understanding them because they're not using Norwegian at all, but rather Old Norse, such as here. You can, I don't know if you can see, normally you could. There are some different letters, S, that doesn't exist anymore in Norwegian. Or it's also possible that they're using Nynorsk. Norwegian's an interesting language in that it has two different standard versions that came out of some historical developments. Norway was part of Denmark and Sweden for some time, and during that period Norwegian wasn't really used anymore. So once Norway became its own state, the idea was that you also needed your own language, and people were reactivating Norwegian. But of course the language that's spoken in some remote areas is not necessarily the language that you need for law for your administration, etc. So they were basically planning out a new Norwegian language, and depending on whether they kept that closeness to Danish or whether they stuck with the more remote dialects, you had some different results. In fact, I think there were 4 different standard languages proposed at some point. Today there are 2 official ones, which are nynorsk, mostly used in the area around Bergen, and bokmål, which is what you are learning when you learn Norwegian normally. Hello, above average Joe. Thank you for being here. I wasn't sure how different the 2 versions really are. I think once you get used to it, it shouldn't be too difficult to read either version. But for me, kind of, small differences can really throw you off when a language is new. Right, and here on the sleeves we can see some more artwork with the runes. Looks a little like the Matrix, just older and red instead of green. And I think I've mentioned this, Wardruna were one of the last bands that I saw before everything got cancelled, and it was absolutely magical, really, really beautiful. And the interesting thing is they are a band that have basically come out of black metal, which is going to be a topic in a moment, and are doing something completely different now. So very much acoustically, self-built instruments, very spiritual, which I think is not at odds with black metal, but is a little different. So, yeah. I think it's a band that's grown up in some way. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay. Thank you, Joe. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Okay, so this was my favorite band when I was a teenager. They're called Moonspell. They're from Portugal. And I actually have this album on CD. I told myself I wouldn't get albums that I have on CD, but I don't know, I found it and it's a deluxe version and they just got me. They are, I don't know if you can really put them under the black metal umbrella. I've seen them described as dark metal, more gothic metal. I think it changes a bit with what they do. They definitely were big with gothic metal in the 90s. This is a very quiet album, relatively speaking. In some parts I think more rock than metal. But they did this really well. They also have some electronic elements, like on Flesh and Magdalene, which I think are just beautiful. But they went away from this specific style of music. I think I don't know if they got some backlash for it. Black metal's not exactly a very open genre. There is a little vinyl in there called Third Skin and Magda Mix. So 2 of the songs with remixes in bright yellow. Very much spring. Yeah, I am a bit of a rocker. There's the lyrics of all of these songs. When you can probably see it from the cover, it's quite critical of religion, but somehow also, you know, all about religion, which is one of the funny things about black metal. There's also some info here on the actual album. Yes, there's here 2 milestone releases with Irreligious, a landmark of the gothic metal genre, you know, sort of similar to Typo Negative. They rejected genre labels, broke the chains of expectations, and made something new here. And they compared this album to Picasso's Blue Period. So being an era marked by the grief and depression of the Spanish artist, Moonspell were also in turmoil during those days, with the breakup with one of the founding members during the writing sessions, and the bittersweet feeling of getting rid of an antagonist member, but with all the legal consequences that soon followed. I didn't actually know about this. So that's mirrored in the songwriting with more refined melodic lines, more adventurous arrangements, in an atmosphere of total creative freedom. And yeah, basically opening up to more varied influences from Depeche Mode to 9 Inch Nails to Swans. I think that catches it really well. Oh, thank you for the suggestion. I haven't heard of Ocean the Jupiter. I'm gonna check it out. I really like Wardruna, so if it's similar, there's a good chance that I'll like it. The title, Sin Pecado, is a double language pun. You can read it as a translation, sin being the English word, and Pecado being the Portuguese translation, or you can read it entirely in Portuguese, in which case it means without sin. Very clever. I really like that, and I really like the band. I haven't listened to their newer stuff in a while. They have gone in a more heavy direction again. But they are supposed to play in Vienna later this year, and I think I might go just for old time's sake. So I should check out the new stuff. Definitely very cool guys, and I think just very open to other influences and other styles of music. There's a very cool video where they play with Camino, who's a fado singer, and they're covering a Beatles song. I love that one. Hey, Emmy. My favorite part of Vienna. Good question. I think I generally just like walking around in the inner districts. So anything from 1st to 9th. And to just watch the architecture around me. There's a lot to discover, and sort of to see how it changes in the light. I really enjoy that. And to sort of just not necessarily do window shopping, but just to see what's around me. I really like that. And I feel like it's a very safe part too. I do go for walks quite late at night too, and I've never felt unsafe. So that's definitely a good part. Okay, this one, if you like heavy music, you might know this. This is Alcest. And again, they are not really a black metal band, but they are kind of in the vicinity. I've seen their style of music described as black gazing, so a mix of black metal and shoegazing, which I find very funny because shoegazing is something that I don't really like. There's definitely some indie elements, or at least, to me it sounds indie. some indie elements in their music that I normally wouldn't like, but somehow with this band it just works. I just really like it. I can do that, Isabel. I'll put it all in the description afterwards. So, this is Spiritual Instinct. I think this is their latest album. It might be, yeah, it's 3 years old by now. I don't think they've released anything since, but they do have some older ones. They're a French band, and the singer goes by the name Neige, Snow. And some of their songs are in French too. We have Les Jardins de Minuit, Protection, L'Île des Morts, and Le Miroir. This one is with a text of Charles van Lerberg. Lerberg, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Je suis une image de l'ombre, un lieu vaguement ébloui. On sent des profondes ténèbres, une diffuse clarté qui luit. C'est pourquoi mon âme sombre comme des fleuves de l'érable et les sources de la nuit. C'est pourquoi je réfléchis le ciel d'azur et la lumière, tout ce qui passe, tout ce qui change. Again, we have some somber artwork here, with the moon and the birds and the waves hitting against the cliffs, and a little abandoned chapel or church. Here we have the figure from the album cover again, with these beautiful wings, and a knight looking a little forlorn here. The lineup is just two people. It's Neige and Winterhalter. Yeah, I think really beautiful album. Most songs are in French, but this is really funny to me. The first song I heard was Sapphire. They also have a video for that. And I really liked the vocals on that one, but I just couldn't make out what he was saying, and I figured if it's French I should understand at least a little bit. Turns out that they regularly have songs where they don't sing in any language. They just sing, but just make up sounds. And it sounds kind of like a language, but it isn't. I thought it was really fascinating. And I'm someone who does like to read the lyrics on the songs. So not having lyrics kind of really changed how I kind of could engage with the song. But I really, really like it. It's definitely my favorite one. There's some remixes, I think, of Protection, which are also really beautiful. So even if you don't like black metal, you might enjoy this one. Thank you for the compliments. I use French very little recently. I should get back into it. I was trying to win the Duolingo League this week. I haven't actually checked what I made it, but I finally tried some French again. I'm mostly just doing Norwegian. Okay, we're going to get to the really heavy stuff now. This is an absolute classic, and I adore this one. This is Darkthrone, A Blaze in the Northern Sky. So this really is just full-on black metal. Possibly the first actual black metal album. People sort of differentiate between a first and a second wave, And the second wave started in the early 90s in Norway. And they say this was written as death metal, but produced as black metal, so like that. And it's kind of the first of sort of an unholy trinity of black metal albums. I was surprised by the production. This actually sounds a lot better than I expected. By now there's only 2 people in the band, Fenris and Nocturno Culto, whose actual name is Ted. He's a teacher, and Fenris works in a post office. And I kind of like these little mundane details about them. The third guy has left the band in the meantime. Yeah, this was the first one. Then they also had Under Funeral Moon and Transylvanian Hunger, I think, was the third one. I don't know if I can recommend them for the actual songs and the production value, but there's just something that really, really fascinates me about this kind of music. Basically, I watched some interviews with Fenris, and he said what they tried to do was to create a specific atmosphere. I really liked how he described it. He said when he was younger, he was kind of fascinated by sort of cloudiness, like if you had clouds, like mist or clouds of sand, or when it went snowing, you had, when the snow was, when they went skiing, sorry, and you moved the snow and you had these little clouds. And for him, guitars or distorted guitars kind of fell into the same category. So listening to that brought up the same feeling as seeing these things. I thought that was really fascinating. And I don't know, they somehow put it into these albums. I just absolutely enjoy it. It's not something for every day, obviously, but every once in a while I do like this. And I also got one of their newer albums. This looks a little different. This is called Old Star. And the band also looks a little different. There's Ted and Gulve. Yeah, they've grown a bit older. I think they're actually quite relaxed guys who kind of live a very normal life, but they just make this kind of extreme music. The funny thing is, I kind of lost track at some point over whether or not they were still producing anything or releasing anything. They're a band that hasn't played live ever, so you wouldn't exactly notice, but I'm going on tour. And they had some odd albums in the middle, like these ones here, Circle the Wagons, Darkthrones, and Black Flags. These really, I think, are unlistenable. Very, very strange. Yeah, these are sort of the classic ones, Transylvanian Hunger and Under Funeral Moon. I also really like the first one, Soulside Journey. And the one I actually wanted to get was this here, Arctic Thunder. Yeah, what I meant to say. So black metal has this really specific idea of how it's supposed to be played. Very, very narrow-minded genre. I remember bands just playing around a bit with adding different instruments. And they got told, oh, this isn't black metal anymore, you can't be part of the scene. And these guys who are one of the bands who really kicked off the whole thing, they've been playing around with punk, with all kinds of influences, with a lot of 80s stuff. Gulve actually does a lot of electronic music too. He's a DJ. And, I feel like they're just having fun with what they're doing. And that's what music should be about. So I do occasionally enjoy a little bit of that. And the last band that we're going to look at is in a similar style. This is the latest purchase. I just got this before the weekend. This is Behemoth, a Polish metal band, and the album is called In Absentia Dei. This is a pandemic album, basically. It's a live album that was recorded in, it says here 2021, but I think it was 2020. They played in an abandoned church, just a band, no audience. And streamed it on YouTube. I think you could buy sort of tickets like to a concert and then release the album. I think they're a really great band, and they put a lot of work into their image, into their style, their outfits. As you can see here, they have lots of different costumes, and I find this extremely funny. This album comes with a little cardboard cutout, so you can cut out the church where they were playing and build the little venue for yourself. There's also here, there's the church portal where you go inside and you can see the band members standing in front of it. Honestly, I find this hilarious. I really like this. With little instructions: glue under the roof, place on the roof, glue to the wall, glue, 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 glue. So, yeah, very specific kind of humor. And we have 3 vinyls. The third one's actually in my player at the moment. And a very beautiful booklet with these glossy pages. I just have to be careful where I open it. I think there's some nudity in there. So no lyrics, but they took a lot of beautiful images with horses. That's a sure way to get my attention. They're also supposed to play in Vienna later this year, but in a venue that's known for its very bad sound. So I'm a bit unsure about whether or not I want to go. I thought maybe I'll book a trip maybe to Budapest or to Munich, or combine it with a trip maybe, further north to see them. But I have some time to think about that. Right, I don't know if this is your kind of music, but I really like that. I feel like it comes and goes, of how heavy I want my albums to be. And I guess winter is a time when I like some heavier ones. Okay, that actually was the last album in my collection. I don't know if there's any questions maybe that you want to ask. Yeah, there's something very funny about sort of this whole phenomenon of black metal in Norway. It's not all unproblematic. It's really the one genre where I tend to Google bands before I listen to them, and have blocked some too from appearing on my streaming sites. But I'm trying not to take it too seriously. There's some very cool stuff there too. I can stay on for a bit longer if you like, and we could look through something else too. Because I recently thought I should get some more books just with maps, in case I want to look up something or get some more ideas for what I want to do. This is a school atlas, but if you guys feel like it, we could just sort of leaf through it and maybe have a look at some maps of Austria. I haven't really planned this out, but I'm sure I'll find something that I'd like to talk about. Let's just put that light to the side. I had a similar atlas when I was at school, but I feel like this one has a lot more information on the history of humanity, sort of possible routes that people have taken. A lot more historic information too that we didn't have. I think ours really was just the world. But I want to skip these general maps, and I thought we could specifically have a look at some Austrian maps. Again, I'm not sure how well you can see these. We can definitely come back to that entire topic later again, when I'm not recording from my phone. But I'd love to spend a little more time with you guys. Alright, so here we have a map of Austria, where you can't quite make it out. I think it really gives you an idea of how difficult of a terrain this is in large parts. We have Vienna up here, which you guys all know really well by now. We have Linz, which is the third largest city, and Graz, which is the second largest city. And we have the Danube here in the north, leading to Bratislava. And my cat's coming to join me. No, she's just hungry. So you have some flat area here along the Danube as well as around Vienna. Here you have Hungary, so that's some flatter region. But then from Vienna down, you have the Alps and most of the western part. So Tyrol, Vorarlberg, large parts of Styria, Salzburg and Carinthia are all in the mountains. I think we're gonna have a map later where you can see where people live, and that makes it really, really obvious. Vienna is by far the largest city, growing to about 2 million people. and Austria as a whole only has just about 9 million. We can also see here Bozen, Bolzano, Südtirol, Trient. We have Laibach or Ljubljana here, Zagreb, and Trieste, which historically once was part of the Habsburg Empire. So, something I guess a lot of people miss. And Miramare, which is a gorgeous place. If you ever make it to Trieste, I very much recommend visiting Miramare. It's a palace right by the sea, built for, I think, the Habsburgs. Hey Ali, thank you for joining me, and I hope you'll sleep very well. Right, again here we have Vienna. You already know this is the first district, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth. So these would be the inner districts. And basically the areas that I enjoy the most, since there was a question earlier. I really enjoy just sort of trying to get a little lost in these streets. It's easier in the first. Honestly, I still got lost there. But there's some parts here too where you kind of turn a corner and you're not quite sure where you are. The 20th also has some nice corners, especially here, the Augarten. And then for this year, I told myself that I'd like to spend a little more time in the hills. I feel like it's not quite right to call these mountains. There's Leopoldberg, Kahlenberg, Vogelsangberg, and Hermannskogel, which I think is the highest one with 542 meters. Okay, Kitty's here. Mishka. I think she was a bit annoyed earlier because I took her chair away where she was sleeping. But it's large enough that she can jump up. I think she's just looking for a way to do so. And then here on the side you can see the Neusiedler See, which is a little like the Sea of der Viennese. So the closest place to go to a large body of water in summer, apart from the Danube. Here we have Upper Austria. So we had a look at Linz before, which is a city along the Danube with the Traun coming up from the south, quite close to Wels, which is another relatively large city for Austria. I think Wels is the 8th biggest city with something like 50,000 inhabitants. So you can see that the places really start to shrink quite quickly. And the third largest city in Upper Austria is Steyr, which lies here along the Enns, and a second river called Steyr. And you have I think the English word is confluence right here in the center. So a city that has some issues with floods, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Very, very beautiful place. If we go down here, we get into the Salzkammergut with Hallstatt, probably the most famous of these places. I've talked a little bit about this region here, the Gesäuse, which is where the Enns breaks through the main part of the Alps. Then here you get to Eisenwurzen, Sengsengebirge, Höllengebirge, Todesgebirge, and then here we have the Dachstein, and on this side already in Salzburg. I think I'm a little too far down for you to be able to see it as well. One very cool thing in Upper Austria is that if you go north into this region, this is the Mühlviertel, north of the Danube, and it's a little raised. So these aren't mountains per se anymore, but it's actually higher up than the valley of the Danube. And you can kind of see across towards the mountains rising up in the south. Very beautiful. Then here we have Graz, so we're in Styria. You can see here Oststeirisches Hügelland. So you have some hills in eastern and western parts. And we have the border to Slovenia. And it's really not far. By train you can go to Maribor in I think an hour. It's a beautiful small city just across the border. We have the Fischbacher Alpen, Kleinalpe, Stubalpe. We have Niedertauern, and then here we're Todesgebirge and Sengsengebirge back towards Upper Austria. And we have a little visitor. Hello. Okay, this is Mishka. Oops. So it's about 10 at night here, which is usually when she gets active. And then she really wants to play around midnight. I guess this is her way of telling me to come and throw some toys for her. Soon. Alright, so we said here we get back north to Upper Austria, and here on the right hand side this would be the way to Vienna. And there's a really cool place called Bucklige Welt. So the world of little hills, basically. I really like that name. It sounds magical almost. Here we are in Graz, moving west and south to Klagenfurt and Villach in Carinthia. And we recently had a look at a map from this area here. Right here, there's the Saualpe, and then the other side should be Choralpe with Wolfsberg here. So this would be the Lavantal. We had this in one of the maps that I found in the book box. And you can see this really is just one corner of Carinthia. And the further you move west, you have all of these lakes like Wörthersee, Ossiacher See, Milstädter See, Weißensee. These are very popular in summer. So Carinthia, even though it has a lot of mountains, I think tends to have more tourism in summer than in winter. And then here we get to the Hohetauern. There's Heiligenblut, and then we have the Großglockner, which is the highest mountain in Austria, and you can also see the glacier called Pasterze right here. Then here we're getting to Salzburg. Again, Totes Gebirge, Dachstein, Tennengebirge. This place is called Steinernes Meer, the Stony Sea. And then here we're getting to the Kitzbühler Alpen. Again, Großglockner and Pasterze right here in the corner. And then towards Kitzbühel. So we're moving further west, and again a place we've looked at is Innsbruck. And if we move along the Inn River, we get to the Zillertal, which we had a look at last time, and up to Wörgl, Kufstein. We have the Zillertaler Alpen here, next to the Hohetauern. And you can see that Italy is not far away. Just here across the Ötztaler Alpen, you're in southern Tyrol, which is now Italy. And the Ötztaler Alpen is also where the man in the ice was found, called Ötzi, after the Alps. We then have Lechtaler Alpen, Allgäuer Alpen, which already leads us north into Germany. And then we're getting to Feldkirch, Dornbirn, Lustenau, so we're in Vorarlberg here. Hey Melissa. Okay, let's have a little look at this history page here, and then I think we're going to call it a night. So we have some information on the Stone Age and the Metal Ages. I think this is where it gets interesting. You can see that the Alps per se are quite difficult to settle in. You mostly have settlements along the rivers like the Salzach, Inn, Enns, or Mur and Mürz. And other than that, the settlements are sort of here around the corners, along the Danube, and then down here around the Alps. But we already have people digging salt out of the mountains here in Hallstatt. So this would have been a couple hundred years before Christ. I can't quite make out the color, but I think this should be Bronze Age. And then on this side we have the Celtic kingdoms, which is Noricum. We can see that around 100 before Christ we have a movement here by a group called Boya, which then move sort of north of the Danube. Again, Boya here, there's Arivatum, this is about 60 before Christ. Boden, making it to Hallstatt. There's also Hallein here. So Hallstatt and Hallein being Celtic centers, just like here, the Magdalensberg. The interesting thing about Hallstatt and Hallein is that they start with the same syllable, Hall, which is an old word for salt. So you know immediately what the importance was of this region. And then you can see a couple more settlements here in the Tyrol along the Inn, but the mountains being kind of hard to reach. And on this part we have Austria Romana. So the Roman Empire stretched out north across the Alps to roughly the Danube, which is called Danubius at the time. And we can see some of the modern cities already existed. Linz was Lenzia. We have Vindobona for Vienna. But it wasn't that important of a place. The more important one was here, Carnuntum, which is not too far out and which you can visit today. Interestingly, Austria was part of 3 different provinces of the Roman Empire. There's Pannonia all the way on the right-hand side. The word is still in use sometimes. For example, there's an area called Pannonia Fields where you have some festivals every once in a while. In the center we have Noricum. Not used as often. I can only think of a horse race that's called Norica. But I don't know if that's directly related to that word Noricum. It doesn't really turn up much. And then here we have Rhätia, which includes parts of the Tyrol, Vorarlberg, and then extends into what would be Switzerland. North we have some Germanic areas. Markomannen, Quaden and Naristen. And in the south we have Italia with Tridentum. Bozen already existed. Sulio, which was Iulium Carnicum. Forum Iulium Cividale. And here we have Ljubljana, Emona along the Save. What else can we see? We have Celje, that is also part of Slovenia. We have Juvavum in Salzburg. Brigantium, Bregenz, you can see the relation in the name. Combodunum, Kempten and Augsburg would be Augusta Vindelicum, so we're already in Germany. Just like Regensburg, Castra Regina and Castra Batava, which is Passau, just along the border. Also a very beautiful city. Alright, so it's just after 10 here. And I think that means for me that it's time to go and entertain my cat a little bit. She's just coming back. I think she heard me. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining me. I know this is a bit of a rough setup. It's not ideal. I hope that if we do it again, we can fix this a little bit and make it a bit better. I I would definitely enjoy it, and let me know if you would too. I think I can try this again. But for next time, I hope that we can just record a normal video with the regular camera, regular microphone, etc. Alright, so thank you very, very much for joining me, and I'll see you again next time.